Hi, I'm Michael Sebastian. I write about media for Advertising Age, and these are the folks from People Magazine. This is Ann Toll. Ann Toll is the associate publisher of People. Sujin Yang, who, okay, remind me of your title here, because it's
Digital
like
GM.
Digital GM, got it. And then Will Lee, who heads up the editorial for People.com.
Right.
And there's actually a birthday in the room right now. It's People Magazine's birthday today. Yeah, that's should we lead in a happy birthday to you or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's okay. Does anybody know or can guess who the first celebrity was, or the celebrity on the first cover of People Magazine?
Mm-hmm.
No. We don't talk about the age. That'd be impolite. No, it was March 4th, 1974 was when the first issue came out. So that makes you 41?
41.
Yes.
All right. So the first celebrity was Mia Farrow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
A
exactly.
reader.
We have a
Thank
reader.
you. Excellent.
So People probably needs no introduction, but maybe what does need introduction is the business around People. It represents 20% of the revenue at its parent company, Time Inc. They won't tell you that necessarily because it's a publicly traded company now, but that's what they said in one of their SEC filings. So it's very important to its parent company, and it makes a lot of money. But as we all know, magazines are in a period of transition right now. People are buying fewer print magazines. Advertising budgets are shifting from print and even TV to digital media. And People is trying to make that transformation so that it can continue to be the powerhouse that it is for not only its parent company, but for the celebrity world. And I mean, its transformation is important because it's not simply about this one brand, or even this one giant company, Time Inc., which is the nation's largest magazine publisher. But in many ways, I think it's a bellwether for the entire magazine industry. Because if People can't pull it off, then when does anybody else stand a chance? So now with those stakes, table set, we're going to give you a video to start to show you what's going on at People in terms of digital media.
Here with nominee Jared.
My life is an endless stream of red carpets and fashion shows at South Beach. That's exactly what my life is.
All right, before we begin my grilling of the panelists, I think they're going to say a word each. So take it away.
Sure. Hi, again, I'm Will Lee. I'm the editorial director for People.com and EW.com. And I think you will find that we actually are all fairly recent to the brand. I personally arrived about 4.5 months ago. And I think the most urgent challenge that we face on a daily basis is how do we future-proof People? for the next 41 years. I think 2015 is very much a year of momentum for us, very much a year of growth, and as our CEO, Joe Rip, does not fail to remind us both in public and private, people has to grow quickly. I think one of the things that we have seen over the years is that a lot of our competitors and competitors that didn't even exist in 2009 have grown, much faster than we have digitally. But that's an opportunity for a number of reasons. And one of the things I talk about is that a lot of the competition has scaled quickly, and I applaud their efforts therein. But 95% of the content internet is still ultimately like one giant microwave, right? Like it's just reheating over and over and over again. I'll give you an example. I have here Curt Schilling taking down his daughter's Twitter trolls. I mean, it's Curt Schilling speaks out after exposing daughter's evil cyberbullies. Curt Schilling tracks down guys harassing daughter. Curt Schilling, you get the point. And then there's the llamas, right? Hey, look, they're chasing llamas on TV. The running of the llamas. That was the New Yorker, by the way. The llamas lead authorities on chase through Arizona streets. BuzzFeed. Twitter captivated by Arizona llama drama. That was BBC. So, I mean, the point I'm making here is that when you and we saw this on the red carpet. Everybody covers everything, right? So in terms of building scale, there's volume is done, right? And I think that we have to be very mindful of that as we grow people. It's as a former colleague of mine, the late great David Carr once said, it's like who wants to be the tallest leprechaun? But I think so it's more just about speed to post and how many posts you do a day, which is important. Don't get me wrong, because that is part of growth. But I think our true success and the key to what we do in 2015 and beyond really lies in some of the founding principles. The great Dick Stolley, who founded People 41 years ago, he said the founding mission was, the vision rather, was extraordinary people doing ordinary things and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I think people up to this day and for the next 40 years will continue to hew to that mission and that vision. We have access, we have authority, and we have attention that I would challenge any media brand, television, digital, print, or otherwise, I think is unrivaled. What I mean by that is we obviously have access to great people, even human interest stories. They want us to tell their stories. We have authority because when we do a story like Bruce Jenner is transitioning into a woman, 4 days later the New York Times does a story saying now it's a story, right? And we hear all the time, like I read People to find out like if something is actually true. And then we have attention. We have attention because we are the largest magazine in the world. Our magazine is on newsstands, dentist offices. It's pretty ubiquitous. And I think one of the challenges for us in 2015, next 18 months, is to try to achieve that kind of ubiquity on the digital side. It's a very different task, I realize, but it's something that we want to do aggressively. I think another thing that we'd like to, on the editorial side, certainly concentrate on is human interest. The ordinary people doing extraordinary things, like Brittany Menard, who was a 29-year-old who took her own life and fought for the right to die. That is an incredibly compelling story that did over 20 million unique visitors within the first 3 days of after her passing, for instance. And yet we set a record for February for traffic, over 72 million uniques. That's in our internal number. And what really, one of the stories that really got us there was a story about, whose wife had died, and they had quadruplets. And that's the kind of story that we had an exclusive on. We told it very well, and we'll continue to follow that story. And that father and those children will tell their story on People. I mean, I also have a personal motivation for making this, wanting to make this really work. I love people. I grew up reading it as a kid in Decatur, Illinois, in my father's waiting room, dermatologist. And my first job was as an assistant at Entertainment Weekly. So I love Time Inc. I love the People brand. I do love the Entertainment Weekly brand as well, of course. But I believe that People is the most important media brand in celebrity human interest in entertainment. And I think that is, that is something that we want to continue to amplify in 2015. And I think, what we've done, one of the things I will talk a little bit more about as we get into the interrogation, is the notion of integration of staffs. And I think if I do my job right, and we all do our jobs right, we will be able to tell an amazing story about how the print and digital sides of this house are no longer, they're far from divided now, but will be fully integrated. But I couldn't do this without the help of the remarkable Sujin Yang and Ann Toll, so I'll let them talk about their parts of the story.
Thank you, Will. All right, so again, I'm Sujin Yang, Digital GM of People. I've also recently joined the organization just about 5.5 months ago. I'm a month ahead of Will, having come over from Bravo, where I spent the last 3 years on the digital side, and prior to that, MTV, where I was for 13 years, also on the digital side. But I'm really happy to be here, happy to be part of such an iconic brand at such an important time for the company. So, just to build on what Will described as our sort of growth strategy, video is absolutely key and a cornerstone to the success of our business. It's real business, starting even at the very fundamental level from a business perspective, just creating that high-value inventory that we need, sort of reducing our reliance on display inventory. And what I think it brings with it, which I think is even more important, is the new engagement model around video-based content. So it's going to allow us to connect with our audience on different levels. And if you take a look at the People brand, the DNA is really revolves around the idea of really quality storytelling. So therefore, it's absolutely essential for us to really gain fluency and truly sort of master one of the richest storytelling formats out there. And one of our ultimate goals is to become a video destination for our users in their minds. So to that end, we have kicked development into high gear. We've expanded our programming slate. You saw snippets of some of the shows up in the reel in the beginning. We launched a show called People Now, which is a live streaming daily show covering daily entertainment news, celebrity interviews. We recently had everyone from Cameron Diaz to, I think, so it's a nice wide range of celebrity. And it's really doing fantastically well for us, helping us habituate our site users to daily fresh content and news in that video format. And within the last 6 months, it's actually helped us double streams, our overall site-wide streams, which is a really fantastic story for us. We're also going to be launching a new franchise, People Scoop. That's going to be quick turnaround videos straight out of our newsroom, also produced on a daily basis, because we really need to gain the credibility, develop the habitual use by our users. And then lastly, our original digital series. So that's going to be a big portion of our digital slate moving forward. Already this year, we've launched 3 series, 2 around our red carpet coverage. The first one, How It's Done, actually sponsored by Aveeno, 4-part style beauty series about how to get a red carpet look. Next, we had Style is the Name of the Game, hosted by Louise Rowe of BBC and eFashion Police fame, along with Jonathan Van Ness, whom some of you might know from Funny or Die and his Game of Thrones show recaps. Pretty funny. They sort of do a celebrity red carpet fashion sort of breakdown That was also sponsored by JCPenney. And then on a slightly different topic, we launched a series called Mom Talk, where we had a variety of celebrities talk about motherhood, being moms, dispensing some motherly advice. We had Tia Mowry and celebrity style. I mean, the other great thing about this is as we establish our voice in the video programming world, just having that amazing reception by our advertisers is just a wonderful thing out of the gate. And again, we're really focused on really more deeply engaging our users, figuring out new ways to engage users. So video obviously is fertile ground for us. Another key area of focus is programming for a variety of screens and a variety of contexts. As we've all seen the explosion of different devices, different platforms, new audiences, it really behooves us as a media brand to really get out there, understand how to communicate with audiences natively on these devices and platforms, specifically being able to communicate with find our own audiences on these other platforms, but also take it as an opportunity to find and be able to speak to new audiences. And I wanted to bring up our partnership with Snapchat. We're very lucky, we count ourselves very lucky to be one of, I believe, 11 partners as part of their Discover platform, which launched at the end of January. And, this is a huge opportunity for us to reach and engage with a very desirable segment of the audience for us. We're really taking care to understand how to best engage with them. So we're custom curating and custom tailoring content, looking for content that might be a little more visual, a little shorter form, more quick hitting, and still, get in our sort of top stories and our favorites. So, learning a lot in perhaps, I guess, the month that we've been on the platform. And, we also see this as a great opportunity for us to cultivate a new generation of hopeful people loyalists. So great opportunity for us. Also terrific for our advertisers. I mean, it's just really great to be able to offer positioning alongside our content on one of the most engaging digital platforms out there today. And then lastly, I wanted to bring up audience insights. Like all media brands, we need to, there's just a continual need to better understand our audience. There's more and more data out there for us to use. We need to get more sophisticated in the way that we use that data and sort of understand our audiences. And, we actually recently partnered with a company called Poshly, whom we find very interesting. I would describe them as a next-generation consumer intelligence platform. They're focused in the beauty and personal care space. They've got over 400,000 existing members. We've got a category-exclusive partnership with them, which is fantastic. But it's a really great sort of experience for our users. So how it works on the site is the front end is a super fun, mobile-first, probably more appealing to millennial giveaway front end. So we're giving away high-end beauty products. They're curated by our beauty editors. And so items like Clarisonics, I think I saw the Dry Bar hair dryer on there, the newest lipstick from Tom Ford. And as users enter these sweepstakes, they're answering questions for us, and it's a super fun, lightweight experience. Everything from demographic information to questions about beauty routine, skin type, hair type. We've even gone as far as asked about television show preference. So we really see this as an opportunity for us to collect data that we can actually use to inform editorial decisions that we're making, new products that we're going to develop. And then from a sales perspective, be able to go out and have a very differentiated offering in the marketplace around data that could really help our advertisers create more relevant messages to our audience, which is also pretty key for us. So I think in addition to scale, we're really honing in on engagement and new audiences, and ultimately more sophisticated use of data to gain better insights on our audience. So I will now pass it on to Ann Toll.
Thank you, Susan.
Publisher.
So I'm Ann Toll, the associate publisher, and what that means is I'm really responsible for the advertising sales for the digital side of People. And from Will and Susan, it's an exciting time at People. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of new things, everything from the Pashis of the world, the Snapchats of the world. But I think on a broader scale, the advertising landscape, it's an exciting time to be in that. If you think about all of the change that's going on, all of the different platforms that are coming up, the different brands that are coming up, the fact that, even Snapchat, there's probably, raise your hand if anyone hasn't heard of it. Okay, no one, right? So if you think back to 6 months ago, a year ago, you probably hadn't really heard of it, or if you did, you maybe weren't really sure what it was. Now I'm pretty sure if I went around the room, everyone could describe what it is. So I think just all that choice and all the new things makes it not only exciting, but challenging. It makes it, from a sales perspective, when you go out and talk to a customer, you can't just think about, like, okay, what does People have to offer today? It's really what's going on in the marketplace, what's the latest trend, what's the latest thing that Ad Age wrote about today. You've really got to know what's going on, or else, you're just going to get crushed by your competition. So I think when I think about, transformation and how People is transforming, I think about it, how we're adapting, but then also how the overall marketplace, and that's everything from mobile devices. I see one in front of everyone right now. That's normal. Probably you guys have 3 or 4 in your pockets and bags as well. But then how we really take our message and put that there is where the fun really kicks in. And that's, when I think about advertising too, I think advertising really means ideas. So it's up to us to come up with the best idea to take that to the marketer to make sure that we're hitting their objectives. And all these new platforms, the data insights, that just allows us to be that much more creative in what we do.
Great, thank you. So I have a stack of questions here I want to ask you, but I also want to key on a couple of things that you just said. Now, Sujan, you said how lucky you feel to be part of Snapchat. That's really interesting because you're People Magazine. You're a giant, and Snapchat is something that might be worth $18 billion, but like a child runs it, or
Right.
somebody who's 22 or something like that. And I'm wondering if that's humbling for you, to have this very new technology, this very new platform, and People Magazine is the one that's saying, gosh, we're lucky to be a part of this.
Yeah, we actually competed against hundreds of media brands. This actually started before I arrived at People, so just found that out recently, which is actually Get Selected was pretty, I think, it was pretty intensive. So I think, when you think about People, there is sort of the idea of, millennial relevance, right? And when you think of Snapchat, which, is run by, some very young folks, very young, smart folks out there, you wouldn't necessarily think that the choices that they ended up making, which are really large established media brands, wasn't necessarily the direction I personally would have thought. I think the quality of the content was something that was high on their priority list. So ultimately landing there, I think, we competed just as well as the other partners and better than, I suppose, the ones that didn't actually make it onto the platform. But and so that's really just a testament to the quality of the team and the reporting. And the content producers. But yeah, I do, I think media brands, we can't rest on our laurels with this new generation, and because there's always something new and better coming along, so I think it behooves us to always play our A game and understand that you have to program to different audiences and sort of maybe in different ways,
Yeah, and just in case anybody's not precisely sure about the Snapchat Discover platform that she's referring to, it's 11 media brands, including CNN and Vice and ESPN and Cosmo Magazine, the Daily Mail, and they create articles and videos that live exclusively on Snapchat for 24 hours. And they publish, every day at noon you publish a slate of stories, and then they sell the ads, and they give part of the ad revenue to Snapchat. So it's pretty interesting, and it looks great. If you haven't checked it out, Snapchat is like, it's sort of mystifying. Maybe that's because I don't know. I'm not like a native user of it, right? But like this looks really good and really cool. What they're doing, what the other media brands are doing.
What's interesting, Michael? Actually, we spoke to Evan Spiegel, and he said, the founder of Snapchat, and he actually, sort of rather than humbly, I mean, he was really amplifying how excited he was to work with us, and how he loves People. I mean, how he loves People magazine. Has read it for his whole life, and very short life, but has read it. And he, but that was really encouraging, and I think that also speaks to how important the brand and how important brand primacy is for the consumer.
Yeah. I wonder, you said that your job is to future-proof people. And part of future-proofing, part of making sure that it has a bright future, is not only getting on platforms like Snapchat, but also determining which ones not to be a part of, I'm sure. Because, I mean, what if you had poured all of your resources into being like the publisher to MySpace or something like that, It'd be an entirely different panel, that's for sure.
Yes.
So, how do you determine what's a waste of time and what's not?
It's a good question. I think we have to explore the places where we feel like our content is being represented, and where the brand can really speak to to the audience most with the most just color. I think one of the things that we like about Snapchat and that platform is just how vibrant it is, and a lot of the things that we do really pop on it. Now, in terms of sort of the quantitative analysis, Susan, you can probably speak a little bit more to that, but I do think there are many opportunities that come our way for distribution and for partnering that we end up not doing, not out of dismissiveness, but more out of just sheer, we have to. Deselection is one of the most important things we can do this year in terms of ensuring success. And worked with I'm sure there may be some benefit, but we're working with the ones that can deliver the most benefit for the time that we're putting into it. Because we also, when we partner with people, we want to put a tremendous amount of effort into the partnership.
All right, so I think it's interesting that when People rose to prominence, I mean, it was one of the only games in town. I mean, if you were a celebrity and you had some news to break, maybe you went to TV or you went to People magazine, or maybe one of your competitors, but probably not if you were, I don't know, the royal family or something like that. Nowadays, there's social media. And these celebrities can basically become their own media companies. They can tweet this news. They can post it to Instagram. They can, post it to Snapchat if they wanted to, I guess. But so how do you compete in this world? How does People stay relevant when the very celebrities it covers can become their own media brands?
Well, for one thing, just as a for instance. George Clooney certainly has enough money to essentially, build his own media company if he wanted to, and and use the many vast social media platforms. And yet, when he got married, he came to us and came to People precisely because of the trust and authority that I've talked about before. Because they know that we will treat the occasion, whatever it is, having a child, properly. And by the way, that we have the scale, both on the magazine side and on the digital side, to truly amplify it in a way that makes sense for a celebrity of that stature. Same with Angelina Jolie. We recently just did Kelly Clarkson's new baby. So I think that's really it. Yes, sure, they could go to Facebook or they go to Instagram. But I think the other thing I think to keep in mind is that you put a photo on Instagram, it all of a sudden becomes almost public property, and you actually lose control of the messaging, even though it feels somehow more that you're doing it yourself. But just because you're doing it yourself doesn't mean that it won't be it won't spin out of control.
So what is people's greatest existential threat? The greatest threat to its existence? Is it media celebrities becoming media companies? Is it nimble, faster-moving digital-only publishers? Is it trends in the advertising world, like automated ad selling and display banner ads, the price of them going down? I mean, what are the things that really keep you up at night? And this goes to all three of you.
I think definitely on the ad side, I think the pressure is on us just to keep innovating. Like I was saying before, that creative customization that we can do can only help us. Yes, there's going to still be banners. There should be banners, and their prices are going to go up and down. But I think the more we can do that's really custom, specific for an advertiser, is going to keep us relevant and keep us moving forward into the next 41 years plus. I think we've done a great job of that over the past few years, but it's much harder now, just as there's more and more competition and more people, doing things and sprouting up. But that's really, the custom part I think is really key.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So native ads.
Native ads,
yeah.
Whether it's native or whether it's some kind of custom execution that can live on our site, can live on our mobile channels, can live in the real world. We do an event or something. Just the ability to kind of harness all of our resources, because we are a large media brand. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot to tap into that works to our advantage.
Yeah.
I would also add to that. I mean, Anne brought up the the explosion of choice. I think the fragmentation of the media landscape, and if you look at even original digital video right now, everyone is jumping into the fray, along with the networks and the production companies. So I think the amount of choice media consumers have at this point is pretty astounding. But I think the threat that we're feeling is a threat that every other media brand is feeling too.
Mm-hmm. So I found it really interesting that I didn't realize that you came, Sujin, from a TV background, or at least worked at cable networks. And some of the things that you were saying sounded very much like programming for television. And I wonder what's people going to look like in 5 years? Is people going to be more of a digital video brand? Is it going to be a TV network? I mean, what's it going to be? Is print even going to exist for People Magazine?
Well, in 5 years, absolutely. But I actually think that if you look at the media landscape and how that changes, I think what we will look like will sort of reflect sort of the more dominant media consumption devices, formats, and consumption behaviors, actually. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe a little hard to say, but I think video will play a much larger role for us, absolutely. But I think really it's about where consumers are going and how they're consuming. Mm-hmm. So we will be there to meet them in whatever format is best for them.
But I also think that there are aside from simply delivering content to a wider range of devices, a mirror in a bathroom, a wearable, whatever, some sort of glasses-based thing. I think actually it's really about connecting the reader and the subjects of our stories, and understanding that whether it's an event, an Oscar party, all across the country. These are all the sort of things that we can that really represents the People brand as much as simply an article.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there going to be? I mean, I'm interested in this idea of a People Magazine TV channel, because it seems like that would just be natural. Why aren't you E?
That is a good question. You want to?
Well, I would say, we can't necessarily comment on a channel, but I would say, video is getting a little more complicated these days, right? So while on the one hand, People is no stranger to television, we just launched our inaugural People Magazine Awards in December. It actually aired on NBC. And I think People has been involved with a number of primetime specials previously on ABC. So the People brand on television is nothing new. And, I think we've got a lot of irons in the fire there. I do also think that, what it means to be on TV is changing with over-the-top devices, all the SVOD players in place. So I think, we're also thinking along those lines, because in 5 years, I think the television landscape is going to be significantly different. So again, we sort of need to think for 2020, build for 2020 now.
So in that case, I feel like a lot of people are always curious about what the next platform is. I mean, you sort of flicked at it when you said, are we going to be reading people on our bathroom mirrors or something like that? And Soojin, I suppose you're probably thinking about that a lot. Is there some kind of wisdom that you can impart to everyone here in the crowd so that we should all know of a platform to look at or something like that?
I'm absolutely not a psychic, but but I personally will say that I'm very fascinated by the wearables market. The idea, now there are 1,000 headlines about the connected cars, although I suppose reading and watching TV while you're driving would be ridiculously dangerous, but there's the back seat. And the other platform that is starting to pop is virtual reality. So I think that's going to be an interesting place to watch for new innovation on the video side.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So I could climb inside the pages of People Magazine or something like that.
Well, I would say don't even use the magazine as the basis for it. It's
right.
Sort of what People's really about.
I could climb inside Will's mind.
Michael, you could interact with all 19 Duggar children, the entire family and extended family.
Yeah, it could be anything.
The dystopian future.
Yes, I love the Duggars. I will not.
We do love the Duggars.
We do love the Duggars dearly.
So much of your traffic comes from mobile devices. I imagine it has to be more than 50% at this point. I mean, it is from nearly all publishers. And a lot of publishers like to tout that. They like to say, look at how forward-thinking we are. We have all this traffic coming in through digital devices. We're making content to be consumed on digital devices. But Anne, as you probably know, that's also a terrifying prospect because it's hard to sell an ad, or at least a lot of ads, on a mobile device that's going to be worth as much on a desktop or in print. So how do you make money from all these people that are visiting you from these mobile devices?
Yeah, you're right. We're right about 50% of our audience is coming through mobile devices. What we're finding actually is the conversation is really about the people audience, and whether somebody comes to us on their iPhone or somebody else comes to us on a tablet, somebody else comes through their desktop. We don't really care. We're going to program the content and make it as best as we can for whatever device you're coming from. From a advertising, sales side of the house, we really try to sell based on that audience, right? So you're buying the People brand, whether it's on a specific day, particular month, whatever it is, and selling cross-platform and making sure that the ad units we're creating are a great experience across everything. So if you're buying some kind of, let's say an entertainment marketer and they want to drive tune in for a show, they might do this, beautiful, spectacular homepage takeover that's going to be on the desktop. It's going to be large, automatic video play there. We'll do a similar experience for mobile and for tablet. Again, they're going to be slightly nuanced just because of the size of the screen and just the experience, but making sure that consistent, overall experience, whether it's video or whatever it is the same. So that, to your point, when we're out selling that package, it's basically 1 CPM across the whole audience.
But even if you look at a digital, so if you look at a website page, you've got maybe 4 ads on that page, something like that. I mean, when you shrink that down to it just being on your phone, then you can only really put 1 ad on the page. So your the ability to monetize 1 page, I mean, you're shrinking your revenue by at that pace, by 4 times. I mean, is that something that's like? I brought up this existential threat. Is that something that's really challenging?
Right. No, definitely top of mind. And I think we're almost looking at it as you consume on mobile, your swipes there, right? So it's rare that you just go to 1 page and then you check out and you're done, unless you're in a real rush. But we're looking, just based on the number of swipes they do, to to find the right mix of when to serve an ad, to your point, so it's not like Times Square as soon as you come there, we've got 80 ads in your face like you might on a larger screen, but really finding that right balance. And I think it's not easy, but I think we're doing a lot of trial and error, and that's what you need to do these days to figure out, what is the right mix. And our audience is very vocal; they're going to tell us if something is horrendous, and we'll listen and we'll make sure we correct it.
Yeah. You're brave out there. You know what I mean? It's not easy. So tell me about People Now. By the way, People Now is interesting. I don't know if anybody here has tuned into People Now. It's a streaming show. It's live on the People website every day, and you guys get really good guests. I mean, for not being on linear television, you get some pretty impressive names. And I'm curious how that's going. Are people watching People Now?
They're definitely watching it, and they're watching it, and more to the point, they're watching it across a lot of different situations. So it's not just about the live show, which is on at 8:30 and 11:30 every day, Monday through Friday. It's a half-hour show, but even beyond that, we've seen for instance, in February we had a tremendous month. I think we were up like 138% month to month. We drove an unbelievable amount of news streams. Some of it related to our Bobby Christina Brown coverage, which drove a tremendous amount of traffic in the month. Tragic story, of course, but I think the interesting thing is that People Now it's a 30-minute show, but within that 30 minutes, if you think of, say, what we've done is make it sort of shareable, snackable segments within that show. So we program it so that it's not about the 30-minute show. It's about the segments that then work on Facebook, work on other social platforms, and we create it in that model, right? So that it's not just another kind of half-hour, 22-minute syndicated entertainment show. So when we have the rapper Biz Markie doing beatboxing, and we have again, the Duggars talking of playing games, right? This is sort of our way to kind of feed the voracious internet audience with with snacks rather than the entire meal.
One thing that people in media like to use the term evolve. We're evolving as a business, as a platform, and I like that term. But there's also another side to evolution, which is that sometimes there are dead ends. There are things that evolve and die and go extinct. And I'm curious, what have been some evolutionary dead ends for people? I mean, I know you've only been there for maybe 5-6 months, something like that, and maybe you can speak to something that your predecessors had done, or something that you showed up and you thought, well, this is not going to work. I mean, what lessons have you gotten from that?
We're walking into a trap.
No. Well, I can speak to some of the other places that I've worked. I mean, I think this is actually a general thing, and if you look at many media brands who maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when the app craze came down, there was a proliferation of like a single-use app, But as media brands, it's challenging to maintain marketing and support around each of those apps. So ultimately, I think you've seen, at least from the television network perspective, there are a few key brands that where like SNL just released like 40 or 43 anniversary content, which is pretty special. Aside from some of those like special cases, generally speaking, you've seen brands sort of winnow down to
the app is not going to save publishing.
Yeah.
I mean, on the content side, I think we certainly. I don't think anybody at Time Inc. would disagree that being very sort of narrowly focused on just the content, just the words, just the typing on a keyboard part of it is definitely an evolutionary dead end. But at a magazine company like Time Inc., that's what most of the content creators do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we are hiring today, the thing that we're really looking for is somebody who, yes, they may be ultimately a writer, but they have video ideas. They're thinking about how we can leverage technology, new platforms, new data, new analytics tools to help them be better, more productive, and ultimately, also, drive more audience to us. So I think that kind of sort of elasticizing the mold of what a writer is, what a reporter is important. Now, on the other hand, I want to stress that we should not just be a newsroom full of faceless typists who just pound out stories one after the other. In fact, I'm always shocked at how 24-year-olds can't pick up the phone and make a reporting call, right? And so it's very important to me in the People newsroom and in the W newsroom to have people who will do that, will take that extra step, because guess what? When we do a story, we make a couple phone calls, that becomes the People story, and that becomes the shared story, the one that people refer to and will share. So I think we want, at Time Inc. generally, we want to our journalistic mission, mm-hmm. while at the same time understanding that it's not just good enough to put content into a CMS and have it post. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more to that than there's a lot more to digital publishing than that.
Mm-hmm. I have a few more questions, but I want to see, does anybody in the audience right now have any questions for the panelists that they want to ask? Keep going. I don't want to, Will, you sort of flicked at this a little bit, and I don't want to talk too much about how the sausage of People magazine is made. Mm. But I am curious, you said integrating the print and digital mm-hmm. newsroom, the teams there. I mean, is that something that's actively happening? Has it already happened?
Yeah, I mean, Jess Cagle, who's our editorial director for the brand, when he came in just over a year ago, did a tremendous job integrating the staffs. And by integration, I think a lot of people talk about integration of digital and print staffs, mm-hmm. but I think it's a very, very different thing in practice. There are a number of issues that arise that can be pretty thorny. The question of sources and the question of when we have the premier celebrity entertainment reporters at People, Human Interest as well, and if they have a source, how do we work with the digital newsroom to make sure that we're not encroaching upon one another's territory? I think, for instance, we have largely dissolved any digital or print titles, right? Mm-hmm. We refer to them as brand editors, brand writers and reporters, because we're all about the brand here. Nobody thinks, well, my job is a magazine editor mm-hmm. anymore. And I think that it's in many respects a mindset that you just have to communicate over and over and over again, so that you're not talking about, okay, well, this will work online. I'll give you an example. Brittany Menard. This was a story that we did online first, and we saw tremendous audience reaction to. So it was not originally slated to be a cover, but because it performed so well online, and we actually had the data to back it up, and I don't just mean like it hit a bunch of concurrence on Chartbeat or it did a lot of uniques. We could really see engagement on a number of different levels. We decided to do it as a cover. It was definitely a risk. I mean, Jess definitely took a huge risk in doing that, but it performed really, really well for us. That allowed us.
How did it sell at the newsstand then?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm sorry. I should know these things. But it definitely out-indexed other, I believe, other human interest rates and performed very strongly for us. But mm-hmm. I can certainly provide that at some point. But the point is that raised awareness to almost a completely different, not a completely different audience, but very different audience, mm-hmm. which then allowed us to continue to own the story online and kind of keep that going. So that there's this flywheel that we're really driving people into by integrating the staffs and having them work very closely together. So it's crucial to our near-term, medium-term, and long-term success that the notion of magazine and digital and whatever other platforms we end up doing are sort of distinct.
Yeah. Question here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe actually just to kind of pick up on that audience engagement part a little bit. So if you think about sort of the range of where publishing is at, from New York Times to HuffPost, like where does audience engage? Where are you guys in your journey toward sort of audience engagement? And I can only imagine that what we see today is probably not what you're thinking about. How well is your audience feedback integrated into the newsroom? How well, how much do you use like social listening? How much are those tools like influencing and impacting the business, and where along that journey do you see yourself trying to go?
That's a good question. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's a great question. So yeah, I would say we are not exact. Like our vision of where we want to be is, a few months out at least for us. I think obviously I talked about Poshly, and I think that's a key step for us in terms of, and that's specific to the style space. We're definitely out there with social listening. I think hopefully you can talk about the newsroom,
yeah,
but
exactly.
I think ultimately I think where we're trying to go is a platform that's definitely informed by our audience's behavior, some of the things that we're actually directly communicating with them about. I also think what we need to do is generate products and experiences that are actually going to tell us more and generate more of that behavior and conversation that'll actually, like as Will just sort of mentioned, becomes a flywheel for us to actually figure out, what the next direction for us would be along those lines.
And I think in terms of the way we use analytics and audience information to inform what we do, again, it has to go beyond just like, this did well yesterday. There's a sort of binary thing, I think, in a lot of digital newsrooms where it's like, well, it did well yesterday, so let's do it tomorrow again, right? And we have to disabuse ourselves of that particular sort of way of thinking. I think it's granular tools into literally the interface that the writer uses to create content, and it's surfacing social activity on other, and again, there are a lot of products that have started to do this, but we want to be a category and frankly technological, just in all of content production, a leader in understanding the important things that go into how a content producer makes their decisions. So not just social, I think pretty soon, the social bubble is very close to bursting, and it's very, very concerning to me every day when someone says, "Oh, we did well on yesterday." And it's like, in a way, yeah, his aunt's going to tell him at a barbecue, like, "Mark, I'm kind of tired of seeing publishers on all these news things." And then, guess what? I'm not going to say it. It's a family. It's a Czech consulate. So I'll restrain my language, but. But you know what? Like it's very important for us to be ahead of kind of where the audience is going and anticipate where we think these stories are. Now, at the end of the day, the fundamental principle of storytelling and great narrative is what will make us a successful brand, regardless. But in terms of the tools and way we motivate the newsroom. I think it's important to have to surface as much as we can possibly surface and as quickly as possible. Speed is crucial.
Thanks. Other questions? One thing that I wanted to talk about that we haven't even really touched on is that there are readers who still pay to read People magazine, and you've introduced attempts at making people pay for digital access as well, and I'm wondering how that's going. Are people paying to read People online?
Yes, we do. We do offer. We have all access subscriptions for people who want access to both the print and the digital. We do offer digital-only subscription, and we work very closely with our consumer marketing team to ensure that our interface meets the needs of both the digital business as well as trying to onboard those very, very loyal users. And we have we have a core set of loyalists who, it's really unbelievable, who might come and read 100 to 150 articles a month. So there's a population out there who love the brand, want to interact with it, and I think it's fair for I don't think there's not too much overlap in the audiences between the magazine product, the print magazine product, and the digital product. So it's fertile feeding ground for the funnel of subscription.
Sure. Questions? I wonder, you don't have to answer this, but I just want to throw this out here. How often do advertisers say, hey, can you introduce us to Taylor Swift? We'll buy an ad from you if you can get us in the same room as the Duggars.
Yeah. I mean, the question has come up in many shapes of that. I think because we are people and we are associated, with basically having a Rolodex in our office, just picking up the phone whenever we want to call Taylor or whoever.
Taylor.
I think we get asked it a lot. I think it's it's just reminding them kind of how the business works. That's not really how we operate. Sure, we can do programs around things that might feature a Taylor in the edit, but it definitely comes up.
But our access, for instance, extends to things like the Oscars, where we have this amazing thing that I discovered. I didn't even know about it, honestly, until I got there, called the Oscar Fan Experience, where 300 people, including a subscriber who gets the whole VIP treatment, are on the watching the celebrities walk up and down. They're taking pictures, and if you look at our Instagram, those people are the happiest people you've ever seen. They're literally their faces are glowing, and I think again we're very careful about our celebrity access and how we use it. But in instances like that, and many others, I think you'll start to see more of, even on the digital side. It gives us a real competitive advantage, and our PR team, for instance, who are here, do an amazing job of of navigating that whole difficult process.
Okay, a couple of questions here from the audience.
Yeah.
Start here.
You said you work with people and
I do.
And to what extent is the material, the editorial, shared, or is it repurposed from people to EW?
Mm-hmm.
And just in keeping with your sense of evolution and change,
Yeah.
is some of what you're saying about people applicable to EW?
This is a very good question. I think the brands will always be very distinct. They have very different audiences, and I think to try to feed the EW reader something from people just because is foolish. But I think where I see a certain degree of cooperation and ultimately productivity coming is that people should go cover the things that people's audience knows that it loves, and more of it, a lot more of it. And EW should do the same, a lot more of that. So if Bruce Jenner, gets into a car wreck on the PCH, well, EW probably doesn't need to do that story. If we think that there's interest in the audience to run the people story, sure, maybe we'll run that instead of having somebody waste 40 minutes, making calls and do that. And do that story. We'll do it on people. But if there's a fabulous Game of Thrones story that we've done, and we think that, well, maybe the people audience might like that as well, because they're definitely Game of Thrones fans who read people.com, we'll give them the opportunity to see that. So in some respects, it's a really great opportunity for us to help each other's audience sample content. But it's definitely, despite what you may have read, it's not a combination, it's not a consolidation, it's very much a how can we all work together to create, to really amplify each other's brands.
Other questions back here?
Yeah, hi, I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. One for Lee, you had mentioned how you People Magazine was no longer you're not hiring no longer hiring just writers. Everybody's a brand ambassador or brand editor or something like that. Now, taking what you said about that, because content, even though content is integrated into video, content print or digital, I mean, everybody has their own unique term but covering the story. Covering the story in print, covering the jumping, covering the news, or something that's very, that's near and dear to the reader's heart. It moves, at some point, you'll maintain the print, I assume.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then integrating all of the video in the video channel, you can just create where, along with the story, where they click the link and it goes into the video page and they can look at 1,000 videos of 2 minutes each of
Yes, I hope so.
Oh.
Very much hope so. No, but yes. So, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
My question basically was, when you see the evolution of people, do you see it evolving from the print to strictly only video, or do you tend to maintain the print side also?
Oh no, I think the print product is crucial. And just personally, I am in almost as many meetings about the cover, which for a digital native is one of those things that's probably a little mystifying, like cover lines and that sort of thing. But I find it fascinating, and it actually informs my sense of how to program the site. And I learn a lot from Jess Cagle, Liz Sporkin, Kate, I mean, remarkable editors at what they do, and to do that every week and to do it with the success that they do is definitely something that I'm fascinated by. I think in terms of and frankly, as I was just explaining with the Brittany Menard story as well as others, we have created this, as I said, this flywheel of using each platform, and we will increasingly use video and our shows and our presence on television to keep people, I think ultimately the rather than like sort of sunsetting one platform or another, it's really about ubiquity, right? Because if we talk about future-proofing the brand, the outcome that we all want to achieve for people is being ubiquitous, and being ubiquitous means being on every platform, or whether it's on paper, it's on a screen, or it's on wherever the audience is. We want people to be. So absolutely, I look forward to, and I love working with the print staff to make help make that product even better.
How many languages is it in?
Not enough. I don't know. Ann, do you know how many languages we're in?
I don't.
Greece and Germany.
Greece and Germany and the U.S.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I had my one. Okay, so you guys talked about a lot of that a little bit earlier. I was curious. Say, for example, with the Oscars and at the red carpet, traditionally it's like E or ABC, whoever has broadcast rights to get there. Now everybody's there, who's live tweeting. You can basically broadcast on the internet for free, well, for cost. A lot of that. How does that change how you guys approach these kinds of money?
That's a really good question. I don't know if you want to talk about red carpet. I mean, probably not. No, I mean but to be perfectly frank, I think red carpet coverage has become a total commodity. I'll just say it, right? I think when Mashable and The Verge are doing, and I love those people, and I know a lot of them, and they're very good at their jobs. But when they're like, critiquing dresses, and they're talking about the OMG Gaga moment and all this, it's like, people used to own that, and in many respects we still do. But it's not something that I feel like is where we have some competitive advantage. In fact, look, if you have a faster CMS, you win. If your 24-year-old social media editor can type faster on his or her iPhone, you win. So like, it's just not a it's very much a speed game, and it's one that obviously red carpet is very important to us, and we will continue to treat with the utmost obsessiveness and figure out how to cover it. But as you say, we've got to figure out how to for the red carpet events coming this year and for next year, we really have to figure out how to differentiate our coverage, and that's a huge challenge for us, both on the product side and on the editorial side, so that we can differentiate ourselves. Because you see, yeah, exactly. It's like it's just I've reached red carpet exhaustion a little bit, frankly.
Peak red carpet.
Peak red carpet. I mean, it's crazy.
But I think one thing, though, that all those people that can just tweet from wherever, what they don't have is the trust and authority and the access, like Will was talking about in the beginning. That is still what the brand is known for. And so at the Oscars, at the Emmys, wherever you are, people's going to get the backstage scene, right? So you might be able to see, I might be able to be at my TV and watching, tweeting about the live gowns, but Will's going to be behind stage and actually giving you the real inside look. So I think that's something we're going to continue to own and continue to really bring something different than everyone else and what they're doing from their couch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi, some question. I've heard you guys talk about video, Snapchat, and you mentioned mobile. So I'm curious if you have a strategy about going into Roku and Comcast, those types of devices. I think with cord cutters and video being part of your strategy, I'm just curious what your thoughts are. A lot of companies I've talked to lately have really pushed and asked for solutions for that. So it seems to be a hot topic. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely being thought about. Right now we have a central video team who has produced an app called The Daily Cut, and they've taken an over-the-top strategy with that. So that's an app that basically features all of Time Inc.'s video content, and that's going to be, I think, we're on Roku,
yes.
Waiting for Apple TV to come through, and I think the idea there's sort of a volume play, but I do think I think for the brands sitting within the Time Inc. building, the question will be at what point, when our programming slates are robust enough, can we sort of branch off and have brand-specific presences on those platforms.
And if you think about Time Inc., I mean, part of the remarkable offering of it is that you have these incredibly iconic and authoritative brands, and as we develop a great programming slate with Jeremy McCabe, our head of video, and many other, we can, in many respects, own those kinds of platforms, SVOD and over the top, and between Time, Fortune, if you think about the range of what we've got at Time Inc., it's just remarkable. It's always funny to me that Jim Bankoff, who I went to high school with, talks about how he wants Fox to be Time Inc. of today's Time Inc. And I'm like, just let's give us a chance to be the Time Inc. of Time, like we'll be the Time Inc. of today, and tomorrow.
I think we have time for one more question.
Going off of that, could you ever see yourself branching into like an Access Hollywood type show or like an E-News type show, like a more like linear experience versus people now?
I think that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, I think if you watch People Now, which I hope you will, it has real elements of that kind of show, but I think we've tried to gear it towards a slightly different, more digital audience. That said, I mean, the People name, as we saw with the People Magazine Awards and many of the specials we do, half their size, year with Robin Roberts. I mean, we have recognizability and the attention of the consumer, and so I absolutely think that is a possibility.
Great, cool. One last thought. I know that People is looking for a president, somebody to oversee People and Entertainment Weekly.
I haven't heard that.
That person will, I imagine, be your boss. And it'll be interesting to see who they pick, who gets that job, because if it's somebody from the TV world, then, I mean, the writing could be on the wall there. If it's a digital-only executive, that could be interesting. And if it's somebody from the print world, that could also be telling. Keep your eyes open for that. But otherwise, thank you very much for this.
Yeah, that was great. Really, really great.